Hi, this is Bill again. This is the second video in basic knife sharpening. This is a one-man Hinkle, by the way, chef's knife. Very nice knife, good steel in it, very thin blade, cuts nicely. So in the previous video I established a wire edge on both sides with a 2000 grit stone. Now this here is a 4000 grit stone, Bester again. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but this retains the water much better because it's a finer grit. It won't absorb the water. So last time I was doing a back sharpening and established the wire edge on this side of the knife. So now what I do, I flip it over. I'm going to remove that wire edge and sharpen the knife till I get a corresponding 4000 grit wire edge on the top side. So starting at the tip, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but this stone even sounds different than the last one. It's not as soft, sort of, it's a harder kind of sound. I guess it's because the grits are finer, and maybe the stone itself may be firmer. You can see that it is taking off some metal. You can see the black lines develop, and there's even a little, if you look carefully, you can see a little bit of slurry starting to develop. So now this 4000 grit stone is going to be not removing very much metal, but polishing the scratches from the 2000 grit stone out and just making that edge smoother so it will cut better. Now, you need to ask yourself is, what kind of an edge do you want on a knife? If you're cutting large chunks of meat, like a butcher, you probably don't want a knife that has an edge of 4000 or 8000 grit. You'll probably be happier with an edge that's 1000 or 2000, because an edge like that will more effectively saw through the meat. And I'm just going to check this now. So it depends. You know, there's no one perfect edge. Now I can feel the wire edge on this all the way along, but it is very faint. And that's because the finer the stone, the finer the wire edge will be. So just looking at the edge now, do a visual inspection. I can see all the way along. It's starting to get a nice polished color. Smooth, shiny surface. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, probably not. So this side is done now, and you notice it didn't take me near as long to do this side, on this stone rather, as on the other one. That's because on the other stone I was establishing the angle and probably removing more metal. But now all I'm doing is polishing the established angle and removing scratches basically, or changing the scratches from 2000 grit scratches to 4000 grit scratches. And at that point you do start to see a shiny mirror surface. Now I'll do the other side. Be careful not to use too much pressure when you're doing this. What can happen is the edge of your knife can actually dig into the stone and sort of plane off a chunk of the stone. That's not good for the stone or your knife. It's getting a little dry there now. And again, I'm trying to spend roughly the same amount of time on this side as I did on the previous side. When I finished with the 2000 grit stone, the pink one, of course that went straight back into my water bath. And before I do that, I normally run tap water over it to remove any remaining slurry or grit. If also that's the point where I decide, does this stone need to be flattened? And before, if I figure it does, or I've got a scratch in it or something, I'll put it on my flattening stone and rub it. The flattening stone is a hard carborundum stone, very, very hard and very flat. And all it does is scrape away the top surface of your water stone or oil stone to expose new grit in a flat level plane. So let me check this now. Again, if you see the back, you can see the slurry building up there. So both sides of this knife now are looking pretty good. You feel the edge, it feels sharp. You do the little knife test on your thumb. See if it feels like it's sort of catchy. And you do want to test the edge all the way along. The other thing is, when I started off, I did this test with the fingernail, moving it up the knife. When I do it now, even though I didn't feel any nicks before, now it's smooth as silk, really. I don't feel anything when I run my nail up there. So I'd say I've got a pretty sharp knife here. Now there is a little bit of wire edge remaining from the last sharpening I was giving it this way. So what I'm going to do now is just give it a little touch, a light touch on both sides to make sure there's no remaining wire edge. I could take this stone or this knife up to the 8,000 level. It's not really necessary. If I was doing a sushi knife or something that's going to cut very delicate materials, I probably would. Or if it was a really fancy Japanese knife or a Hinkle or a German European knife that was people were really proud of and like to look at as much as use, I'd probably take it up to the 8,000 level just to put a higher level of polish on. But for a working knife, 4,000 is probably enough. Now if you've got Globals, for instance, they have a very hard steel in them. They retain their edge a long time, and they would definitely benefit from going up to the 8,000 grit, but not too much. You don't want, there's advantage to having those little tiny teeth in the edge so that it cuts more effectively in a sawing motion. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you very much.